Hi everybody, I'm KHOU 11 meteorologist Pat Cavlin coming to you from Houston, Texas with an update. Unfortunately, it's been a really long week of just devastating stories coming out of the hill country. And unfortunately tonight, Saturday night, going into tomorrow, Sunday morning, there is another flood threat for the same areas that were devastated on July 4th. So let's just start with what's going on. We've got a flood watch that's in effect. This means that the potential for flooding exists in these areas, and it's a pretty large area extending from North Texas all the way down towards the U.S.-Mexico border and then back across West Texas. This is in effect until 7 p.m. on Sunday. So let's talk about the setup that we're dealing with right now. You've got a large area of high pressure. This is across the southeast. Notice the flow around it is bringing moisture in from the Gulf of Mexico. That moisture is then interacting with this stationary boundary that's draped all the way from the Great Lakes back across the state of Texas. And then within the state is where we have this big flood risk that's really going to start late tonight after midnight and continue into a good part of the day on Sunday. So here's a closer look at that flood risk. And as of this evening, the Weather Prediction Center, which is the entity in charge of putting out these flood outlooks, has increased the risk for the hill country, specifically the areas that saw the devastating flooding last weekend, to a level 3 out of 4. So that's a moderate risk there in the red. That involves Kerrville, that involves the town of Ingram, going up towards Junction, Brady, San Angelo, and all of this area is the feeding waterways for the Colorado River and for the Guadalupe River. And so again, these are the same areas that were just hit hard last weekend. And then in the yellow shaded area, this is a slight risk, a level 2 out of 4, still a significant risk for flooding. But the bullseye really is centered here across the hill country. This is where confidence has increased this afternoon and this evening in the potential to see some of this potential flooding. Then as we get into tomorrow, it's a level 2 out of 4 for those same areas. Again, through the hill country, it's a lower risk along I-35. But if we do end up seeing devastating flooding again tonight, and that continues into Sunday, they may increase this risk. So we're really focused on that level 3 out of 4 potential for the overnight hours tonight. So let's show you a future track here, and things really start to blow up around the Kerrville area around 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, but it just continues. And notice that bit of a swirl there. That is the exact same feature that led to the flooding last weekend. It's a vortex. It's known as a mesoscale convective vortex, an MCV. You may have seen it on social media. You may have heard us talk about it. MCVs are basically mini areas of low pressure that are able to spawn downpours and thunderstorms. The problem with them, though, is that when they're slow moving, they can produce tremendous amounts of rainfall over a small localized area, within sometimes a short period of time, and sometimes, if it's slow moving off, a long period of time. In this particular model run that I just showed you, this has the possibility of heavy rain falling over the areas that saw the flooding last weekend for 8 to 12 hours. So this is why that flooding threat has been increased to a level 3 out of 4. And some of the rain totals that we could see just based on that model run alone are really kind of concerning here. I mean, once you get above the yellow shaded, that's where you're getting into the 3 to 5 inch range. So again, the yellow is 2 to 3 inches. Above that is the orange shading here. That's 3 to 5 inches. When you get into the level above that, that's 5 to 8 inches. And then the level above that, this darker red in here, this is where the model is printing off rain totals that could possibly be 8 to 12 inches. And again, this is all at the start. Here's the Guadalupe River here that goes through Kerrville and eventually through New Braunfels. This is the river that flooded last week. And we're talking about a rainfall bullseye that almost mimics what we had last week over this exact same area. And so this is where a lot of concern is starting to build tonight. If you have friends or family that live in this area that are still recovering, if you yourself are watching from this area, please have multiple ways to get warnings if flash flooding becomes an issue tonight. Don't rely on just a cell phone. Have a weather radio. Just make sure that you're also not staying in an area that is prone to flooding. Get away from the river if you are in this area tonight, or if you have friends and family that are in this area or anywhere. I mean, even the Colorado River getting into Austin could potentially see some flooding for tonight. This is a pretty dangerous situation just based on how saturated everything is from last week. Stay on top of the forecast as we go through tonight and for the day tomorrow.